we have a surprisingly wholesome yet equally fretting story of a girl named Katarina Claes. She is a young noble in this medieval fantasy world, and as most nobles are, she thinks that she is entitled to a life of prestige and power. Despite being a kid, she's an arrogant and pretentious elitist, though this behavior is only limited to those she deems inferior to her. For example, when her father introduces her to a young Prince Giordo as her future husband, she instantly becomes a sweet little girl and starts fawning all over him. Though her cute romance was short-lived, since she was still taking a stroll together with Giordo, she trips and bangs her head. And this just sends her head into a loop. In that moment, Katarina remembers everything. How she used to be a 17-year-old humble high school girl, who also got picked on sometimes for her weird antics. Her family was ordinary, her life was ordinary, everything was ordinary. That was until a significant lack of sleep from indulging into otaku activities all night long got her into a traffic accident. That day in modern Japan, she died. However, she was then born as Katarina Claes. She spent the first 8 years of her new life completely clueless about her past. When she finally wakes up after the concussion, she realizes she's a noble and is also engaged with Prince Giordo. Of course, this comes as a massive shock to her, but after lying down and pondering about it for a minute, she comes to an even more shocking realization. Katarina realizes that the reality she's in right now is practically the same as the story of Fortune Lover, the otome game that she used to play all the time. In fact, it's because she was up all night playing this game that her carelessness resulted in her death. No, what's the big deal? She could be happy about her new life, right? Well, this is where it gets tricky. If the plot of the game is anything to reference in the current situation, then she's the primary antagonist. That's right, she's the Villainess, who will eventually either be exiled from the kingdom or be killed without remorse. As long as the story goes on the way it's been going, all that awaited her was ultimate doom. But Katarina is a smart girl. She quickly whips out a long-term plan that involves her getting good at magic and learning necessary farming skills. She can use magic to avoid death at the hands of George, and she can use farming to feed herself even if she's exiled. That's right, Katarina had this situation in the bag. Soon enough, the plot begins moving forward as she gets herself a sibling. It's her new adopted brother named Keith. Now, in the original story, Katarina is a despicable person to Keith, since he's a mistress's son. She loathes him and constantly bullies him. As a result, when he grows up, he becomes an apathetic playboy who constantly uses other girls to quench his loneliness. Eventually, Keith's actions also result in Katarina's doom. Of course, Katarina knew about the plot, and so she starts being a sweet sister to her brother from the get-go. Although one day, when she talks Keith into showing her his golem magic, she ends up getting knocked out by that very same golem. When she regains consciousness, she's already in her bed. Her parents tell her about Keith's potent magic, how he hurt one of his brothers in the past, and how they may have developed some trauma because of that experience. Katarina gets up and runs to his room. Looks like he had locked the door and was already blaming himself for what happened to her. This kind of self-isolation makes Katarina ascertain that things are going exactly as the plot. However, Katarina was stronger than the plot. She literally just chops the door using an axe and comforts him by stating how she isn't afraid of her brother. This speaks to Keith on both the mental and spiritual level. While her mother drags her away for chopping the door, Keith can't help but let out a genuine smile. Sometime later, Katarina and Keith are both sent to attend a tea party, and this is where Katarina comes across another important character, Mary Hunt. She's about their age, shy and introverted, so much so that there is even a party going on. She's still out in the garden amidst the flowers. Katarina encounters her. There she realizes that Mary has a green thumb, and so she asks for her advice. Soon enough, Mary is at Katarina's garden, helping her out with the vegetables. Both of them were already good friends. In fact, Katarina ends up saying something to Mary that was originally supposed to be her fiance's line. That day, Mary leaves with a genuine smile on her face. This is where Keith explains how Mary was suffering from an inferiority complex because of the constant bullying from her older sisters, but looks like her friendship with Katarina is going to go a long way. And sure enough, the next day, another major player enters the scene. This time it's Giorde's twin brother named Alan. He's here to keep Katarina from stealing his fiancée. He challenges her to a contest. Katarina proposes tree climbing and then proceeds to win by a significant margin. He keeps challenging her, but the result is always the same. Though eventually Katarina suggests a music competition, since by this point, she also had a few reservations about tree climbing, but mostly just the fear that her mother would find out, and also the fact that Giorde was already there. Anyway, when Alan starts playing the piano, Katarina is completely blown away. It's too powerful. However, Alan's inferiority complex was also too powerful. Since Giorde was there, he couldn't properly receive Katarina's compliment and ended up running away. Katarina catches up to him and then helps him realize how no one is perfect. Even Giordo has bad things about it. which is why he should be proud of his own individuality, not to mention his beautiful piano skills. Now, Katerina may not have thought much about what she said, but thanks to her, Alan's heart has started to heal. Though as for Katerina herself, she realized that if worst came to worst, Giordo is about to kill her in the future, she can throw a snake to create a diversion. And so she starts practicing the art of throwing snakes from this day onward. Next up, we have another tea party. This time, it's hosted by Giordo's family. Katerina goes off on her own once again and ends up climbing a tree, but from up above, she notices how a girl is being ostracized by a few other kids. She immediately jumps and chases them away, hence in turn protecting this girl named Sofia Oskart. Now, even in this world, Katerina was still very much an otaku. However, since there weren't any manga, anime, or light novels, she binge reads romance novels instead. When she realizes that Sofia has read one of her favorite novels, she instantly becomes her friend and invites her over to her house. Sofia shows up the next day together with her brother, Nicole. Nicole is an enigmatic kid who simply never smiles, but more importantly, she is also an important route when it comes to the plot of the game. Katerina decides not to get overly communicative with him and shifts her attention to talking about novels with Sofia. When they're about to leave, she also makes a wonderful comment about Sofia's beautiful white hair and scarlet eyes. This makes Sofia shed a few tears since she's always been insulted about her appearance throughout her childhood. From here on out, Katerina, Mary, and Sofia frequently meet up to talk about novels. Though one day, while Katerina's at Sofia's place, she learns more about her family. And then, finally, Katerina witnesses a rare occurrence. In a conversation with Nicole, when she praises him for his subtle love for his family and the way he cares for his sister, she catches Nicole's smile. Even Katerina's obliviousness couldn't stop her from blushing at this rare turn of events. The story then takes us 7 years into the future, when the main events of Fortune Lover transpire. Katerina has spent the past 7 years learning magic and growing vegetables. You can tell that although she's scared, she's ready to meet the challenges head on. And since it's her 15th birthday, all the characters mentioned at this point show up to the party. They can't wait to dance with Katerina. The sexual tension is unreal, which is to be expected since everyone's a teenager at this point, but Katerina is clueless. Now, after bidding a teary farewell to her parents, both Katerina and Keith are set to leave in order to attend the Magic Academy. When they arrive at the academy, things are going smoothly, until Katerina hears about Maria Campbell, the actual protagonist of the game. She then catches a glimpse of her and knows right away that this is the protagonist. Once again, she understands how crucial it is for her to continue practicing her farming endeavors, and so she starts a farm at the academy as well. She then visits the student council where she encounters Maria yet again, only this time they exchange a few words. Maria reveals she loves baking, and so Katerina expresses her desire to eat her cookies. However, when Maria is on her way to bring the muffins she had baked, she's stopped by a few bullies. They insult her for being a commoner and also waste the stuff she baked. Fortunately, Katerina shows up and stops the bullying before it could escalate any further. Maria is overwhelmed by Katerina's compassion, and so this kickstarts yet another genuine friendship. Suffice to say, in the original plot of the game, it was Katerina and her lackeys who were bullying Maria until she was saved by Giordo. Be that as it may, the bullying continued. Katerina asks Keith about a way to help Maria, and so Keith suggests that if they stay close to her, none of the other nobles would have the balls to pick on her. And so, once again, Katerina saves her from the bullies, even though in the original part of the game it was Keith who saved her the second time. As you can expect, Maria and Katerina have now gotten very close. One day, after Katerina and Keith pay a random farm a visit, she recalls that Maria's home is nearby, and so they go to pay her a visit. At Maria's place, Katerina and Keith were warmly welcomed, but things get somewhat sentimental when Maria's mother reveals her daughter's traumatic past. Looks like Maria has a rare light magic, which is why the locals thought that she is an illegitimate son of a noble, and so she's been ostracized all her life. Even though that's not the case. Though now that Maria has found a friend like Katerina, her mother is genuinely relieved. The same can't be said about Katerina's own mother, however. She's informed about the farm her daughter is running on the campus, and so Katerina receives some reasonable scolding. Time passes by, and it's finally summer vacation. And as everybody knows, that with hot weather comes equally potent sexual tension. No, we're not talking about the Fated Beach episode yet. What happens is that Giordo invites Katerina to go to a lake with him, so I guess it's beach substitute. Unfortunately, our otaku girl had already friend-zoned him in her subconscious mind, and so he ends up inviting everyone else as well. Well, for what it's worth, both the boys and girls have a crush on Katerina in some capacity or another. Later, she goes shopping together with Sofia and Nicole, but it turns out to be a secret trap by Sofia. She wants her brother to end up with Katerina, and so she bails while the two of them are together. Nicole is surprisingly bold, but not as bold as Katerina's obliviousness. Of course, Katarina's harem adventure doesn't end there either. She's invited to attend one of Alan's piano exhibits, where Alan also gives off the same energy as the other boys concerning Katarina, but since his fiancée Mary is there, the situation goes nowhere yet again. The summer break ends after all these adventures. Katarina is forced to do all her summer vacation on the last day. However, when she sleeps, she recalls her best friend, Atsuko Sasaki, in her dream. We then get a short flashback about Atsuko Sasaki. She was continuously ignored and teased throughout her childhood. Eventually, she gave up on making friends and developed a passion for reading books. That is until the day she's walking in the schoolyard, Katarina suddenly falls off from the tree right on top of her. Little did the two outcasts know they would develop a friendship that would outlast death. When Katarina was absent from school, Atsuko didn't think much of it until she was later informed about her friend's death. This piece of information destroyed her mental health and overwhelmed her emotions. She makes a wish that once she dies, she can be reunited with Katarina, no matter where she is. As fate would have it, Sophia was also having a dream about Atsuko. When they were back in the academy, the students have to go through a practical exam, which involves entering an ominous dungeon and retrieving a magic stone. But while they're searching, Katarina ends up getting separated from her team, but ironically enough, she ends up right in front of the magic stone. Meanwhile, Nicole and Sophia use their wind magic to uncover Katarina's location. Katarina, on the other hand, takes a wrong step and is about to fall off a cliff when, fortunately, Sophia pops up and grabs her right in the nick of time. They were still not out of harm's way, but an unexpected whirlwind helped them get back to the ground. As for who helped them, well, that's a mystery. They meet up with everyone else later, but Maria notices a sinister presence clinging to Katarina. Keep this in mind, this will be relevant in a couple of episodes. As for now, Katarina and Mary decide to go pay the library a visit. Everyone else also tags along since they all want more screen time with Katarina. They all sit in a round table to study, but a peculiar magic book sucks all of them inside except Mary and Maria. These two try to figure out a way to get them out of the book world, but things get tricky when they realize that they'd have to let at least one of them fulfill their deepest desires, otherwise the spell wouldn't break. But since everyone's deepest desire ultimately came down to doing immoral stuff with Katarina, Mary and Maria don't let their stories unfold, and so they decide to let Katarina's deepest desire play out instead. Just like that, we see Katarina enter the land of sweets and cookies. She binge eats so much that the book can no longer hold her inside. The spell breaks, and so everyone comes out of the book. By the way, Alan's deepest desire wasn't explored in this scenario, most likely because Mary didn't want her guy to realize his feelings for Katarina. In the next episode, Katarina and the other girls engage in a sleepover to celebrate their academic success. Katarina's maid, Anne Shelley, has been quite observant of the entire situation all this time, and so she enlightens us once again about Katarina's harem situation. Basically, everyone's in love with Katarina. Now, as the girls enjoy their time together, her maid Anne's backstory is revealed. A long time ago, she was caught in a fire that not only gave her a permanent scar, but she also lost her mother. To make matters more depressing, her father deemed her unfit for marriage, and since he was only keeping her around for the sake of marrying her off to a prestigious family, he decided to disown her now that her body was scarred, and so she became a maid at Katarina's household. Things weren't really improving for her until one day when Katarina went through a major personality change. Back in those days, Katarina's joyful attitude finally brought some color into her life. Things did go south one time when her father returned once again with a marriage proposal, but both Katarina and Anne drove him out. Now Anne feels at home whenever she's taking care of Katarina. Sometime later, Katarina sends Giordo an invitation for something. He's overjoyed and ready to have some quality time with his fiancée, but imagine his disappointment when he learns that not only are they going to be harvesting crops, it looks like everyone received the invitation. Poor Giordo. Good luck next time. Well, by this time, Katarina was living a wonderful life with all these friends, which is why the idea that she's supposed to be the villainess kinda slipped her mind. That is until one day when she's confronted by many girls who state that she's been plotting and committing a lot of evil left and right. Katarina quickly realizes that this situation is exactly what happened in the game before she suffered the doom. Though the situation was different, all of her friends were there. They clowned the bullies out of the room. Maria notices that these girls were enveloped in a sinister aura, and later when she tries to look into the situation, she goes missing. They spend 3 days searching for her, but Maria is still not found. Giordo then comes up to Katarina, states something strange. All the girls who accused her have no memory why they did so whatsoever. There's only one explanation. They were all being manipulated by dark magic. This is where the pieces fall into place. Dark magic is extremely rare. In fact, it's not even the kind of magic that someone can be born with. Rather, it has to be acquired through the process of sacrificing a human life. This is also why others cannot perceive it, except those with light magic. This explains Maria's disappearance. It was already late at night, and so Katarina goes to sleep, but she wakes up because of a nightmare about how all her friends are killed. She couldn't sleep. The next day, she goes to the infirmary because of the fatigue. She then sits on a bench and recalls her first meeting with Maria. The recent turn of events had her somewhat down. Though that's when the one behind it all decides to show himself. It's the student council president named Sirius Dyke. Katerina has already had a few previous interactions with him in the past, which is why she could never have expected that he's the secret character Atsuko talked about in her previous life. However, when she recalls the description of this character from her memory, she realizes it's Sirius. The man in question feigns ignorance at first, but then reveals that it was indeed him who abducted Maria. It wasn't really his plan, though. She just happened to come and ask him about his dark magic emitting from him, so he had to put her to sleep. After saying this, Sirius Deke goes on to declare that the one whom he actually really loathes is Katerina. His reasoning is rather dumb in the sense that he hates Katerina for having so many genuine friendships. Katerina ends up feeling a little bad after catching the lonely look in her eyes and tries to comfort him, but Sirius Deke goes through with his dark magic and puts her to sleep. This is where things take quite an interesting turn. When Katerina wakes up, she's back in modern-day Japan. She gets ready, goes to school, and talks to Atsuko at lunch, but she just can't shake off the feeling that she's forgetting something. Meanwhile, it's been 2 days in the other world since Katerina was found asleep by the others. She's still asleep, and the doctors really have no idea what's going on. Everyone has gone pale from all the worrying and stress. They express their frustration at the severity of the situation, while also knowing that if Katerina doesn't wake up, she may eventually die. Although they can't do much, they try to use the law of attraction to send her positive energy. Really feeling those vibes. Katerina is still in the dream world, unaware of what happened, but she eventually starts hearing their voices. This then helps her recall that she's not part of this world. Atsuko was the one who gave her that last push and made her finally realize that she is Katerina Clays. As for how she did it, well, that's because Sophia is Atsuko's reincarnation, but the Atsuko in this dream seems to know much more than Sophia. She tells Katerina about Maria's location before everything in this dream world crumbles apart and Katerina wakes up in the other world. Things get quite emotional really fast, but then Katerina uses Atsuko's words as a reference to go save Maria together with everyone else. Maria is soon found and all safe and sound. However, the gang then confronts the perpetrator himself. Sirius reveals a little bit of backstory. His real name is Raphael Walt, and he's the illegitimate child of someone from the Deke family, but his mother was a maid. Raphael may not have had a wonderful childhood, but he and his mother both loved each other nonetheless. Unfortunately, his father's real wife found out about Raphael and his mother. She also had a son named Sirius Deke, but her son had severe health problems. So she decides to use Raphael and his mother to perform a forbidden ritual so that she can save her son. First, one of her mages kills Raphael's mother so that the dark magic can be performed. Then she tells the mage to transfer her son's soul to Raphael's body. The mage does as he's told, but Raphael's mind still remains dormant inside his body. It did receive all of Sirius's memories, though. Be that as it may, this story doesn't end here. When the ritual is done, the woman kills off the mage too to hide the evidence, but the mage ends up inside Raphael as well. Since then, it's been the mage who was emitting that dark magic, and so it was him who overwhelmed Raphael's heart with feelings of rage and revenge toward those who didn't even warrant it. Anyways, he was planning revenge against the woman who did this to him in the first place. To that end, he's been living as Sirius all this time. Raphael then tells Katerina that she may have been able to save the others, but she cannot save him. He's too far gone. However, Katerina then tells him that even if she can't save him, she can at least lend him her ears and stay by his side. This somehow makes Raphael recall his mother's kindness, and he decides to let go of his desires of revenge for the sake of moving on. The dark magic intervenes once again, but Raphael manages to drive it out. Well, it was never really his in the first place. After all this time, he's finally freed of the darkness that flooded his heart. Raphael reveals everything that happened to the higher-ups, and thankfully, that woman is apprehended along with all of her underlings. Then it's time for the big event. It's the second year's graduation party. Katerina remembers the plot and recalls how this is where Maria confesses her love interest. And so she goes to ask Maria about the person she loves. But of course, it's Katerina. In fact, everyone has fallen in love with her at this point, including Raphael. Speaking of Raphael, he decides to work at the Department of Magic at the Academy. All is well that ends well. That is right, the story of the game ended without Katerina getting doomed in one way or another. She thinks that it's a friendship ending, but in actuality, it's a reverse harem ending. Now, Katerina may have outlived the script of the game, but her harem adventures continue! What do you think would happen next? Well then, find out in the second season of My Next Life as a Villainess. And that's the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading a lot of videos just like this, so I'll see you at the next one.